Some people need reassurance the most when they are least able to ask for it. That is why they often look fine right when they feel the most uncertain. They go quiet instead of reaching out. They act normal while privately searching your tone for signs that something changed. They want to hear, "I'm here." They want to know the connection is still safe. But asking feels heavier than it sounds. It can feel exposing, embarrassing, and strangely dangerous. So they wait for you to notice. Then they feel hurt when you do not. From the outside, this can look confusing. Inside, it feels like needing something your body has already labeled risky. They are not always afraid of the answer. Sometimes they are more afraid of what asking reveals about them, that they care this much, that your response matters this deeply. So instead of saying, "Can you reassure me?" they say less. They pull back, become harder to read, and hope closeness comes toward them without being requested. This is one of the loneliest patterns in relationships. You need comfort, but the path toward it feels like self-exposure. You want the softening. You hate what it costs to ask. And that tension does not come from nowhere. It usually has a history. At some point, reassurance may have felt unavailable, inconsistent, or emotionally expensive. You may have learned that needing comfort changed the room in ways that did not feel good. Maybe someone sighed when you asked what was wrong. Maybe they called you too sensitive, too much, or impossible to satisfy. Maybe comfort arrived, but only after you shrank yourself first. Maybe affection came with impatience, conditions, or emotional distance. So now your need for reassurance is still human, but asking for it can feel loaded with old meanings. It can feel like weakness. It can feel like burden. It can feel like handing someone the power to calm you down, then waiting to see if they use it kindly. For some people, that weight feels unbearable. That is why they often ask indirectly, not with clear words, but with mood shifts, quiet pauses, changed timing, and small tests. They may say, "It's fine," when it clearly is not. They may become a little colder and hope you hear the ache underneath it. They may mention feeling weird without explaining why. They may bring up something small that is really standing in for something much bigger. What they want is not always constant praise. Usually they want emotional confirmation. A sign that the bond is still there. A sign that they have not drifted outside your care without noticing. This can happen after silence. It can happen after closeness too. In fact, some people need reassurance most right after intimacy. A deep conversation, a loving weekend, a vulnerable moment, and suddenly they feel exposed instead of settled. That seems backward until you understand the psychology. Closeness raises the emotional stakes. If something matters more, the possibility of losing it feels more real. So tenderness can bring comfort and fear at the same time. That is when the mind starts scanning. Did their tone change after I opened up? Are they quieter today? Did I say too much, need too much, reveal too much? And because the fear is often old, the current moment gets crowded fast. A small delay can carry emotional weight far beyond the actual event. One unread message becomes a story. One distracted reply becomes a shift in the whole relationship. This is not because they are irrational. It is because emotionally important people activate memory as much as they activate love. The nervous system does not only read what is happening now, it also reads what this moment resembles. So if reassurance once felt unreliable, your body may react before your logic catches up. You may feel unsettled first, then try to explain it later. That is where overthinking often begins, not as drama, but as an attempt to regain certainty without asking for it. You replay details. You compare today's warmth to yesterday's warmth. You look for patterns in punctuation, timing, volume, and face expression. You become a private investigator in a relationship that may not actually be in danger. Still, the need underneath is real. You are not craving control as much as emotional steadiness. You want to know the connection can survive ordinary fluctuations. You want to know affection does not disappear just because the moment got quiet. But if you never ask directly, reassurance stays inconsistent. You depend on accidental comfort instead of mutual clarity. That creates a painful cycle. The need grows, the fear grows, and the silence grows with both. Then other behaviors start appearing, not because the person is manipulative, but because unspoken needs always find some outlet. They may get unusually sensitive to minor changes. They may sound irritated when they are actually scared. They may become distant, hoping you will come closer, or they may overfunction, acting cheerful so no one sees how unsure they feel. Some become hyper-independent right when they most want softness. They answer late, act unaffected, and pretend their emotional world is smaller than it is. That self-containment can look strong. Sometimes it is just fear wearing polished clothes. Because needing reassurance is not the hard part. Admitting you need it from a specific person is the hard part. That creates vulnerability with a target. It means someone can meet you, ignore you, misunderstand you, or decide your need is inconvenient. And if you've felt that before, your pride starts trying to protect your heart. It says, do not ask, just watch. So you watch. You read between lines, delays, glances, and little changes in energy. You become fluent in emotional weather, but not always in direct expression. You can sense everything except how to say the simplest sentence. Sometimes that sentence is just, can you tell me we're okay? But for a guarded person, that line can feel enormous. It can feel childish, dependent, or humiliating, even when it is actually honest and mature. This is where many people misread themselves. They think the problem is that they need too much reassurance. Often the deeper problem is that they have never learned how to ask for enough reassurance in a clean, direct way. So the need stays tangled in shame. And shame changes everything. It turns a simple emotional request into a threat to your self-image. Now you are not just asking for comfort. You are risking feeling needy in your own eyes. That is why some people would rather suffer privately than ask once clearly. Private pain can feel more dignified than exposed need. But dignity without connection becomes lonely fast, especially in love. In relationships, this pattern often shows up in subtle scenes. Your partner is a little distracted, and you instantly feel less secure. You want to ask if something is off. Instead, you say nothing and start going quiet too. Or maybe they say they are busy today. You understand the words, but your body uses distance. You tell yourself not to overreact. Then you spend the whole day checking the emotional temperature of every message. Or after a tender night, you wake up feeling strangely flat. What should feel warm suddenly feels uncertain. You want reassurance that the closeness was real, but asking would expose how much it affected you. So you become casual. You send something light, then read too much into the response. That is how people can look easygoing while feeling deeply unsteady. They are trying to preserve connection without revealing how much they need confirmation. And this does not only happen in romantic relationships. It happens with friends, family, even people you are only beginning to trust. Any bond that matters can activate it. The more important the connection, the harder it can be to speak plainly. Because plain speech leaves fewer places to hide. If you ask directly, you cannot pretend it did not matter. And that can feel terrifying for people who survive by looking composed. They would rather appear low maintenance than visibly hopeful. But hope is usually what is underneath this. Not weakness, not manipulation, not immaturity. Hope mixed with fear. The hope that you matter and the fear of finding out you do not in the way you wished. That is why reassurance is so emotionally loaded. It does not just calm the present. It touches old questions. Am I safe with you? And will I stay safe when I am not at my strongest? People who struggle to ask for reassurance are often deeply responsive to shifts in closeness. They feel changes quickly, sometimes before anything has been clearly spoken. That sensitivity can make them perceptive. It can also make them tired. Because living this way means carrying a quiet vigilance through intimacy. You are not just loving someone. You are monitoring the bond. And monitoring is exhausting. It steals ease from moments that could have been simple. You cannot fully relax into affection if part of you is always preparing for the next drop in warmth. Even calm love starts feeling mentally busy. So the issue is not just reassurance. It is the relationship between need and safety. If asking for comfort does not feel safe, then every need starts trying to disguise itself. It shows up as irritation, sarcasm, silence, overthinking, or cool distance. Then the other person gets confused. They respond to the surface behavior, not the hidden ache. Now the person who needed reassurance feels even more unseen, and the loneliness deepens. This is why unspoken reassurance needs can create so much misunderstanding. One person thinks, "Why didn't you just tell me?" The other thinks, "If I had to ask, it would not mean as much." Both sides are reacting to something real. For the guarded person, spontaneous reassurance feels pure. Asked for reassurance can feel less believable, almost scripted. But that belief creates another trap. It makes emotional safety depend on mind reading. And mind reading is not intimacy. It is wishful guessing under pressure. Healthy closeness is not built on someone perfectly detecting every hidden fear. It is built on two people becoming easier to know. That sounds simple, but is not easy, especially if your old pattern says that need should be hidden until it disappears. It usually does not disappear. It just changes shape. Sometimes it becomes resentment. Sometimes it becomes numbness. Sometimes it becomes that strange sentence people say after pulling away for weeks, "I just wanted to see if you'd notice." That sentence holds a lot of grief. It means the need was there all along. It just could not come out as a request. There is also a deeper contradiction here. People who struggle to ask for reassurance often desperately value reassurance that feels natural. They want it to come freely. They want it to arrive before they have to expose their fear. Because if it comes first, they feel seen. If they have to ask, they fear feeling tolerated. This is why they may remember small moments forever. A random check-in, an unprompted hug, a message that says, "I know you get quiet when you're overwhelmed. I'm not going anywhere." That kind of reassurance lands deeply, not because it is dramatic, but because it reaches the need without forcing confession first. Still, even beautiful reassurance cannot solve everything if shame remains untouched. Otherwise, the person keeps needing comfort while rejecting the very act of requesting it. That becomes a private prison. The door is unlocked, but asking still feels impossible. So what actually changes this pattern? Usually not by becoming less emotional, and not by pretending you should need nothing. The shift begins when need stops being treated like evidence of inadequacy. Needing reassurance does not automatically mean you are insecure in a shallow way. It often means your bond matters enough that inconsistency registers strongly. That matters, because many thoughtful people judge themselves too harshly for normal attachment needs. The problem is not having those needs. The problem is letting shame force them underground until they come out sideways. Real maturity is not never needing comfort. It is learning how to ask for it without collapsing into apology or disguise. Sometimes that starts with smaller language, not a dramatic confession, just a clear sentence. "I think I'm reading too much into this, and I could use a little reassurance." That sentence carries honesty without accusation. Or, "When things get quiet, I tend to get in my head." That opens a door without making the other person responsible for your entire emotional history. This kind of language matters because it replaces performance with clarity. It gives the other person something real to respond to. It also changes your own inner experience. Now you are not secretly begging to be understood through hints. You're participating in the safety you want. That is a huge shift. Because reassurance works best when it becomes part of relational honesty, not a hidden test of whether someone can decode you. Clarity protects connection more than silence ever does. That does not mean everyone will respond well. Some people are dismissive, impatient, or emotionally clumsy. And those responses matter. They give you actual information. If someone repeatedly makes your normal need for reassurance feel embarrassing, that is not proof you should need less. It may be proof the connection does not know how to hold tenderness well. But many people are not rejecting the need. They simply cannot respond to what has never been clearly named. That is the part guarded people often underestimate. A partner can love you and still miss what you never let them fully see. So yes, reassurance is deeply emotional, but asking for it is also a relational skill. It takes courage to trade silent hoping for spoken truth. It takes self-respect to believe your need can be voiced without making you smaller. And if you have spent years being the composed one, the strong one, the low-maintenance one, that change can feel almost identity level. You are not just speaking more openly. You're loosening an old survival style. You're admitting that calm does not always mean safe. You're allowing someone to meet the part of you that gets uncertain in the dark. That is not weakness. That is intimacy, real intimacy. The kind that does not wait for people to guess perfectly. The kind that lets tenderness be spoken before it turns into distance. Because the truth is, people who struggle to ask for reassurance are often not asking for too much. They are carrying too much alone. They are translating need into silence, then wondering why comfort feels far away. They are hoping to be understood while hiding the map. And once you see that clearly, something softens. The issue is not that your heart wants reassurance. The issue is that your heart learned to associate asking with risk. That is why the need feels bigger than the sentence. But a sentence can still change a relationship. Sometimes one honest line interrupts years of private overthinking. Sometimes, "Can you remind me we're okay?" does more for closeness than an entire week of acting unaffected. Sometimes the bravest thing is not enduring uncertainty well. It is admitting that reassurance would help. It is letting care reach you before fear turns it into distance. Because in the end, needing reassurance is not the most revealing thing about a person. The more revealing thing is what they had to survive that made asking feel so hard. And once that becomes visible, the pattern stops looking dramatic. It starts looking deeply human. A person can be thoughtful, strong, self-aware, and still struggle to say, "I need a little comfort right now." That does not make them fragile. It makes them someone whose heart learned caution around dependence. Someone who feels deeply enough for reassurance to matter. And maybe that is the real reframe. Reassurance is not proof that you are too much. Sometimes it's proof that connection matters to you in a real way. The work is not to stop needing it completely. The work is to stop hiding that need so well that love never gets the chance to answer it.